Yes, we are live, and you are still fixing some bugs.
Yeah,
Not
I've
for
got
the
the
stream,
task.
but I hear you. I hear you typing. Hello,
I
Brett.
need to find the window. I was caught. Okay, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here.
You're here. Perfect. It's our new stream. We've done a stream before, but we started now forward planning. I think in this stream, well, I mean, the intention is that we want to talk about how we code with AI agents, all the workflows, all the tips and tricks, covering various agents, but then also how you can keep learning when using all of those AI tools. And yeah, forward planning. Why forward planning, Brad? Do you have any idea why, or well, what comes to your mind when you hear forward planning?
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, it starts with FP. So that's the that's the kicker. I think also planning is just becoming more important. So the goal behind what you are trying to achieve needs to be very crisp. Because once you hand it off to these like implementation machines that we now have at our fingertips, if there's any sort of ambiguity, you'll pay the price later in review, or when it doesn't quite match your expectations, or when the model makes decisions that you wouldn't have. So yeah, to me, it's like a little bit of planning for the future.
We, we could have named it future planning.
Future planning.
Future
Future.
planning.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you basically said it today in the office as well. We are entering a new world where your team, like Claude or Codex or Gemini, they become part of your team. It's not like you are only a team of developers, but like those agents are basically formatting your team, which I think is fun. And yeah, I mean, I think that the idea about the stream is we want to talk about this new world of engineering. How can we embrace our engineering work together with AI agents? And for today, for the introduction, we want to talk about task managers. And if I'm like going back to the old world, I would have had a system like Linear or whatever to work with my team on different tickets to implement software, right? But when we work with AI agents, we also need a ticketing system, but it looks different for various reasons. And I think that we've seen a lot of those task managers popping up lately. Like Beats is a good example because it got a lot of traction. And I'm wondering, why are we not using Linear if Linear exists already? Why do we need those AI agent task managers? Can you give me some insights?
Yeah, I think there's kind of two reasons. One is one is the granularity of task that you hand over to a coding agent is very different than the type of than the granularity of a task that you get in something like Jira or Linear. Jira and Linear are a bit more on the product side, so you might get like a high-level product requirement, and then as an engineer, you end up kind of tasking that out of the various components that need to be touched and modified and everything like that. And those are typically the tasks that you or your agent or you and your agent together will work on. So yeah, that means that your task manager you use for larger coding projects or features or whatever, it kind of exists on a different plane. It doesn't need all the integrations and legibility that a typical task manager has. And yeah, that's reason one in my mind. And then reason two is those tools like Linear, Jira, etc., they were meant to be used through web interface, a native interface, and they're not as agent friendly as like a simple CLI. So we have the Linear MCP has a lot of thought put into it, but Claude still struggles to use it, and it's very token hungry. So on the order of what 50,000 tokens in your context window just to be able to use the task manager. and it still takes Claude some learning to be able to file an issue correctly with all of the correct parameters. So yeah, that's part of that to me is the other reason. Like, Claude does not need, well, Claude or any coding agent does not need much. It needs a simple CLI that's easy to learn on the fly, and it needs a place to store these tasks. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think maybe one step back, it's always good to break down an engineering work for Claude into tasks, because if not, it gets too wild, I guess, with the implementation, and also the context might get well. I mean, maybe it could work if you let it off, but I think the idea is when you do when you want to control it a little bit more, having tasks and giving the context at the right time is essential. Yeah. So I think at Fiberplane, and that's why we're talking about it, we start building an own task manager. I think when did we start? Last year somewhere. Can you give some information why we started this and why our team thought we need something for Claude to manage the tasks?
Yeah, I think we kind of stumbled onto this in late October, early November, where we had a workflow going of wanting something outside of the to-do list with Claude Code, and wanting something a bit more visual, easy to inspect, and then something that worked across sessions a little bit better. And so the first prototype was with Linear, just trying to make it all work with with our Linear accounts. And then that would also give like team visibility of like, okay, this is what my Claude worked on. You could kind of see as well as a ticket was being worked on. If you stepped away, you would still get like a high level summary of design decisions that were made in the presence of any ambiguity through comments and stuff like that. So we found that Claude still made a lot of mistakes, and it was a little like I said earlier, token hungry to integrate an existing task manager. So our colleague Larinus took just some learnings from working with agents in the previous few months, and then built a small CLI. And then it turns out that there was a lot of parallel thinking happening, because I think that was around the week that Beads was launched. So yeah, that's a little bit the genesis story. We started working with it just to see how it felt, and then quickly it became something I used every single day. And we were like, okay, this there's something to this. Yeah.
And maybe you can give some insights how FP is storing the tasks. Like, I think it's all local on your machine. What is the mechanism behind it?
Okay, so presently, it stores all the tasks as markdown files with YAML front matter. There, I can show it. This is good. Share screen. And that is in your home directory when you install the CLI. So if you went to fp.dev, took this install command, and installed FP, there, it's good. After you FP init and set up a project, then inside your, so that's my home.fiberplane, you'll start seeing, oh wait, how do I do everything on one line? I forgot. No, that's long. Let's just do, nope, okay. I forgot my ls commands. There is projects.toml here, and then projects folder. So then in my projects folder, you see all the different things that I've been tracking with FP. And there you'll see an issues folder. And this is the beautiful collection of issues. So if I took this one right here, and instead did a cat, oh, there we go. You'll see the front matter right here, which is just some metadata about the file, and then the contents of the file itself. Coming very soon, it's only in experimental right now, is, oops, cat. We are kind of simultaneously writing them to a SQLite database for each project, and then that's going to be used to synchronize the issues. So yeah, I mean, like right now it's in your home directory, .fiberplane, and then by projects, and it's stored in Markdown files, and then in a couple of weeks it'll be in a database. Hope that wasn't too much, but
no, I think there's always, I like always to see what it does in the background. So FP comes with a CLI to initialize the project, and then in Claude I use a skill, right? So I have the FP skill that I give to Claude, so Claude can also figure out how to interact with FP.
Yeah.
And I think that's the interesting part, because we know that other task managers also use a skill pattern, but we've also seen a few ones using MCP. Was there a certain design decision where we said, oh, we just don't use MCP, we use the skill?
I think that's just learnings of the past couple of months. So even in MCP land, you get more effective use out of MCP when the agent can write code to invoke the MCP. So coding agents typically already have access to like a terminal or a shell, which means that they can run commands, which means if you just give it a CLI, it's easier, a CLI and some basic instructions, it's easier for it to just try things, and if it doesn't work, see the help text from the error and then try another thing. MCP, on the other hand, is a bit more unnatural for unnatural is a strange word, but I'm going to use it. It's unnatural for agents to use insofar as there's not a lot of training data. There's more and more, and then I'm sure there's like post-training to make models better at using MCP. But they're calling tools at the end of the day, and those tools, those tool calls typically require, well, in MCP they require JSON, and that's just not something that the models saw in their training data in the wild a lot compared to code and CLI usage. So you can get a bit more, this is a long way to say you get more leverage out of the training data when you can use a CLI. And in my mind, like the whole point of MCP is that you get a generic way to be able to call tools. And just the fact that since we are already in a programming environment like a terminal, we can use a CLI, which means that we don't really have to use MCP. And that gives us some token savings. Yeah,
and I think in general, I saw like last year when skills were announced on Claude, there was a shift like from some of the MCP servers more towards skills. Probably because of then also token usage and stuff like that, because if your agent has to figure out how to use the MCP server, that might cost some more tokens than if it loads a skill, as you mentioned, with the CLI commands in there, or any other skill that you could get. Okay, so now we have covered that we use skill and that we have a local storage, and that we are planning basically together with our AI agent, or that we have a plan what we want to implement. Is there a certain step where you would say there is another part in the workflow that we have to rethink now? Maybe after implementing like the review process, do you have some thought about that? Because that has been also normally different from us. Like it's different if I would review your code or if you would review my code.
Yeah. Review, I'm still trying to figure out the best way. And I think a lot of other people are as well, because and we've seen this coming for over a year, which is that the more you trust an agent, the larger the PRs become, and then the more difficult it is to review that wall of diffs. Yeah, the review tool that we have with FP is quite nice insofar as you are always, so it's kind of like when an agent finishes some work, it's associated with the task, so you kind of know the intent behind the change. And that's a good way to frame yourself going into it. On top of that, I've enjoyed just having Claude review its own work, it's a pretty like fundamental part of these things that they're going to be better at reviewing than generating, which is to say they're better at looking at the output and going, oh, that doesn't make sense, than like producing something that makes sense. And so typically before I do a human review, I do several AI reviews, but it's good to guide those reviews. So I often like pull in the original ticket that I created with FP as a way to be like, hey, we had this agreement that what you wrote should do X, Y, and Z. Does it do X, Y, and Z?
I often feel like in a D&D game, like role-playing game, like I implement with Claude a ticket and then I'm like reviewing it and I'm telling Claude like, oh, now you're a senior engineer and this is the ticket. Please make sure that all of those things are implemented correctly, and is the ticket following best practices and stuff like that. And normally it always flags something again. So it's funny that Claude can also be like, I don't know, like role. Like it is on the one hand side the implementer itself and then a reviewer, but with different roles, so taking on different hats.
I will also say, I don't know, I've played around with this a little, and so like one weekend I just sent it on a loop of so like review the code, file tickets with FP for all your findings, like every single. So I was like, every single problem that you think there is, file a ticket for it. And then like just repeated that process 5 or 6 times. And I will say, it didn't work as well as I'd hoped. It kind of like got tripped up. And this could have been a prompting problem, but like it forgot a previous design decision from like a previous thing I implemented. Or it's actually related to that fp.db, the SQLite DB with issues. So that is like what we call a dual write path. Oh, now I'm getting in the weeds, but
that's why we're here. So I mean, come on.
So the whole idea behind that is it's kind of invisible as we like make sure that it works properly. And so if anything goes wrong there, I never wanted that failure to propagate directly to the CLI. Because as far as an end user is concerned, there is no database. I wanted it to go to a log file. And so working on a separate thing that touched some of the code that has that dual write path, when I sent it off on this like 5, 6, 7 iterations of review and fix and review and fix, it just started finding what it thought were issues with how we propagate errors. And it was like, hey, you're not actually propagating an error here. And that was the whole point. So when I went back to review the, extremely reviewed code, I found issues where it's like, oh, okay, so it reverted a purposely made decision. This is a bit of a tangent, but it's just like the lesson still becomes like, you can't, like, you need to review it yourself.
Also, you want to keep a little bit control about certain software you are developing, unless, I don't know, I mean, I've seen wipe-coded stuff all over the place where it doesn't matter, but I feel in businesses and enterprises, you still need to control or have an understanding of what's going on and implement it. Like, it's getting hard if there is a PR with 2,000 lines of code changed. I don't know.
Yeah. Or 20,000.
20,000.
Which I did the other week. Most of it was tests.
Oh wow, 20,000. Yeah. I would be interested if someone has seen more, or like, I don't know what can happen. Probably more can happen if you have also a larger code base. I don't
know. But yeah, so review. I know that again, our colleague Larinas will be hopefully presenting in like 2 hours or so in Paris of a leg up on the wall of diffs. Which is kind of a narrative-based approach, which I've been pining for over a year, which is just like use the LLM, not just to present me with the files changed, but with a description, like co-locate relevant changes and tell me like what purpose they serve. And I think that's an easier way, because like right now going through a massive review, it's like you have to build up your mental model of the entire change and all of the subparts of that change in order to make sense of it. And this is something, like I said, like LLMs are very good at reading and summarizing things, and we should be using them to kind of like help structure the way we approach a review. So yeah, that'll come soon. I'm excited about that.
Cool. But yeah, I mean, so far, what is the most, like, when you use a task manager, what workflow makes it easier for you with an AI agent? Like, now we have covered the planning, implementing is then done by the AI agent. With you, we still have to figure out a little bit, but we need help. We need to do it. What type of workflows is a task manager making easier for you now?
Okay, so this isn't like controversial, but I know there are a lot of people who don't. Everyone has their own workflow. I found myself needing to multitask between different branches, like a lot of different branches open with things going on. I had a colleague years ago who I loved this. He was like, context, yes, because okay, a pattern we had noticed is that people like to invoke the idea of a context switch. Like context switching is hard, is an excuse to not do things, which can be that can be a good boundary up until a point, but in any realistic scenario, you do have to context switch. You have to be able to move between different things. Like you can't just work on one thing unless you are a very privileged engineer. And so his whole thing was like, in that world, context switching becomes a skill that you can train for yourself. And part of that skill that he is an extremely talented engineer. Is he kind of like he has a download before he walks away from something, where he like writes down things that were in his head, so the next time he returns, he rereads those and gets back into the spot. And I've found that it's very useful for me to have a task list with subtasks, and when I walk away from something, possibly to review work from another colleague or to spin up, a bug fix, when I come back, it is so much easier for me to get back into the zone I was in when I was working on the thing. And that to me is like, that's been one of the biggest benefits of using a task manager. Like everything is organized for me to return to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think literally before the stream we talked a little bit about it, but for me, actually, it helps to, I mean, because the cycles of review are getting shorter as well. If you let your AI agent review something, it's not like your coworker takes the review, but for me, sometimes it helps as a mental model. I still get up and I try to get a cup of coffee and then I come back and then I read the review. I don't know. It sometimes just helps. And also with context switching, if I know the next thing I'm doing is something else, sometimes it's just helping to stand up from my desk, walk around and then come back. I don't know. It's like weird, but we had those habits before and I try to still do them because, yeah, otherwise sometimes it gets too much just sitting in the full time in front of the computer because there is no need for a break anymore.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. But that could be also something very personal on my side. So.
No, brain breaks are important. I could nerd out on this, but there is I'm forgetting the term. Oh, they're basically your energy in a 90-minute window naturally ebbs and flows. And yeah, like we kind of just need breaks at a physiological level to still be able to perform and think. So yeah.
Yeah, and I feel it's getting harder with AI to take those breaks because they are not naturally in the workflow anymore. So because
they're always they're there. They're like, all right, what do you want? What do you want next?
Yeah. It's like your coworker that never sleeps, like the one that you can always ping and you can be always like, I have a question and they're like, sure, I help you. But yeah, maybe one last question. And I'm just interested in this. How many lines of code do you still write yourself with a task manager, with Claude Code and all of those agents around you?
Oof. Not many. And this was kind of captured in a tweet by Andre Karpathy recently, which was in the past couple of months. It's been for him more 80% generated, 20% himself. I'm mainly, if I'm doing anything, it's like I'm going in and tweaking small things. So copy, I still tweak copy myself. I'm trying to think of other cases. If I want to set up a pattern for the LLM to use, sometimes I'll do that, just to make sure that it's like set off on the right path. But yeah, I don't have a percentage, but you know, a lot of it is letting Claude do its thing and making sure that it did that thing well.
That's a fair answer, I think, and it's also like the time to move, or like to maybe not have the approach to implement every single line yourself anymore, because you will be slower. Like I'm super impressed how quick Claude can do all the things. So I can never be as quick as the AI agent, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, there's very like few scenarios now, and I celebrate them when I'm like, I could do this faster. But yeah, it's kind of mind-boggling, and sometimes it's a little. It's not. Yeah, I won't ruminate too much, but this whole there's like a wow, that's cool, combined with a little bit of sadness of just like what I once thought was one of my skills is not really like it's not really that valuable of a skill anymore, in the sense of like, I spent years to be able to do this thing, and now Claude can do it better, and like most coding agents can do it better.
Sure,
and
yeah.
faster. Yeah, which is it's remarkable to me, and I wouldn't have said that maybe 3 or 4 months ago as earnestly. Yeah.
There's also sometimes, well, I mean, that's probably topic for a different thing that I'm having in my mind now, is like sometimes demotivating if you want to learn something new, because you are questioning yourself, do I really need to learn it? Because Claude can do it faster than I do. But I feel obviously there is still some value in learning new skills, learning new technology, because you will be able to review them afterwards. Otherwise, you can't review Claude's code if you are not really familiar with a new tech stack or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say brave new engineering world we are entering.
Yeah. I will. And then, like, so the hopeful thing, right, is so I'm working on our like synchronization. Yeah, basically the architecture for us to still keep everything local, and then you can flip a switch and then start synchronizing, and there won't be, too much conflict or anything like that. And if I would have just let Claude rip on that feature, it would have been just like a nightmare. And so there's like still a place for us in our judgment, and I'm convinced of that after over Christmas I did let Claude rip just to see what would happen, and it was like it works, but it was not great. It was not good at all. Not a product. Let me put it that way. There's not a product that you would give to other people.
Okay.
And like my learning process has been augmented by Claude for this, and I was able to learn things much more quickly. But when it came down to actually writing the code, like there's no way I could have finished as quickly. Just there's absolutely no way. It would have taken me like 3 to 4 or 5 times as long to get something in place. Once we knew what we needed to build. But Claude was not great at figuring out what we needed to build on its own.
So would you say architecture, like architecting, planning, product management, becomes more important as a skill for a human to interact with Claude and those agents?
But this is the what I said at the beginning, the like planning part, and why we have planning in the name is you need to know like what you're building and why, and especially the why, because if that's not clear, Claude can play, or any agent can play fast and loose with it, and you'll end up with something that isn't what you had in mind. And so, yeah, I can't tell you how many times in the very, very initial attempts at sync, Claude seemed to forget that we were local first, or forget that we were like a CLI tool that worked on the file system. It was kind of a like there were so many unique constraints to our setup that yeah, Claude would just kind of like lose track of that very easily.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the next episodes of forward planning, because I think there's a lot that we can talk about here in this new engineering world, about, yeah, well, different things, different aspects, the skills we can give to Claude, but also tips and tricks, challenges, planning, reviewing, a
Yeah.
lot. But I think that was a great first episode. Is there something you would like to add?
Nope.
Some sentence for the agents before we say goodbye.
Sentence for the agent. Command exited with exit code 1. Please try with a different flag.
Perfect. That's a perfect last CLI command.